Love, Lost, Rebirth, Alive. Blue Dolphins. The novel. By Makāula Nakae. Chapter 4, Aumākua, Guardian Spirit, Episode 14. Aumākua, Guardian Spirit not wanting to dwell on the shadows of the past, Coco shifted the focus back to Hanalei. Speaking of which, you have Hawaiian blood, she noted. Yes, a quarter, Hanalei replied. Most people don't notice. They don't know the subtle differences in Polynesians. To people on the mainland, we all look the same. But Hawaiians, Samoans, and Maori each have distinctive traits. Hawaiians in particular tend to be tall. Even the women are often 6 feet, and for the men, reaching 6 feet 2 inches or higher is common. Our jawlines are often strong and square, almost like ancient Greeks. But why do you ask? Many people with Hawaiian blood have some psychic ability, she said softly. A faint tension passed between them. Hanalei's eyes widened in astonishment. Are you kidding? You're saying I can see and hear things the way you do? He knew the legends, but applying them to himself felt like a stretch. Please, just listen, she insisted. What happened at the party, it happened because it was you. If it were someone else, it wouldn't have resonated that way. Do you understand what I mean? I don't know how to answer that, Hanalei said, retreating into logic. I believe in the spiritual world. My mother talked about it constantly when I was a child. Most Hawaiians believe in it to some extent. We're taught to honor the ancestors. But believing in those things doesn't mean I have a gift like yours. To him, believing in a world and living inside it were two very different realities. I know Hawaiians believe in Aumākua, Coco said, struggling to grasp the breadth of the concept. But I still don't understand how ancestral spirits can include so many animals. She found it difficult to reconcile general ideas of ancestor worship with a reverence for turtles, sharks, owls, and even stones. To a Western-educated mind, honoring a deceased grandfather made sense, but revering a moo, lizard, or a puo, owl as a direct blood ancestor felt like a leap into the impossible. It is difficult to understand, Hanalei agreed. He thought of his grandfather, a man with half Hawaiian blood who had lived in a world where the spiritual and the physical were not separate. In the old days, every family supposedly had a haka, a medium, and a kaula, a seer who received constant guidance from the other side. Hanalei leaned in, his voice taking on the rhythmic quality of an oral history. I once listened to a woman who was a living treasure of Hawaii, Kawena Johnson. She was a professor emeritus at the University of Hawaii, an anthropologist, and a master of the language. She actually worked with Mary Kawena Pukui to compile the Hawaiian dictionary, focusing specifically on the hula and its hidden meanings. She was a direct descendant of King Kamehameha the Great, and her grandfather had served King Kalakaua himself. She told a story from her youth, Hanalei continued, back when the traditional ways were still the law of the home. Her family held a spirit council through a haka, a medium. The spirit gave them a specific instruction. Take a scoop basket to the shore and simply wait. Kana went down to the water's edge with her sister, skeptical but obedient. He paused for effect, watching Coco's expression. And then the miracle happened. The fish began to jump out of the water one by one, voluntarily leaping straight into their baskets. It wasn't luck. It was as if the sea itself was offering a gift to its children through the guidance of the Aumākua. Coco's eyes sparked with pure fascination. That's unbelievable, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustle of the pipi leaves. To her, this wasn't just a fairy tale. It was a confirmation that the commotion of energy she felt in her own body had deep, ancient roots in the soil they were standing on. It sounds like a myth, Hanalei said, but to someone like her, it was just the way life worked when you were in harmony, in pono, with the ancestors. The divide between the human world and the animal world didn't exist. Encouraged by her interest, Hanalei tried to recall the stories his mother had passed down. He explained that when a family member passed, a kahuna, priest, was called to perform a ritual. It was believed the kahuna could facilitate the soul's transition into the body of an animal, a shark, a turtle, a lizard, allowing the deceased to remain as a guardian for the living. Family stones were the same, he added. In ancient Hawaii, stones weren't just inanimate tools. They were vessels for mana, or spiritual energy. Fishing stones, in particular, were believed to embody Aumākua. They were intricately crafted and imbued with prayers to guide the canoes and protect the fishermen from the dangers of the deep. Sitting there in the museum garden, the modern world of Honolulu seemed to fade. For a moment, they weren't just a designer and an empath. They were descendants of a culture that saw divinity in the very earth and sea around them. Hanalei leaned in, his voice dropping an octave as the midday sun dappled through the leaves. In fishing families, people would seek help from fishing stones placed by the sea to catch fish. But why seek help from stones? Coco asked, her brow furrowing. To her, a stone was the very definition of silence and stillness. Who would ask a rock for help? That's the scary part, Hanalei replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. Scary? Why? Hanalei explained that in ancient Hawaii, fishing wasn't a hobby. It was the thread that held the family's survival together. There were no markets. They lived entirely off the land and sea. But the method of creating a guardian was visceral. On the Big Island, the coast is honeycombed with lava tubes, he said. In some of these caves, there are large vertical stones that look like small children, with faces carved into the rock. When a wife bore her first child in a fishing family, the kahuna would sometimes take the newborn to one of these caves. They believed a newborn soul was still fluid, able to enter and leave the body. The baby would be buried under the stone, and the spirit would become imbued within the rock. Coco's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with a mix of horror and awe. The family would bring gifts to the stone, Hanalei continued. They would talk to it, teaching the spirit of the child the ways of the currents and the fish. Eventually, that stone, that child's spirit, would become the family's supreme fishing guide, leading them to the schools of fish. I can't believe that, she whispered, her voice trembling. It's an ancient mulelo, Hanalei said with a small, uneasy laugh, trying to break the tension. This was long before Westerners arrived with Christianity. Back then, the bridge between life and spirit was crossed in ways we can't imagine today. He waved his fork playfully. Polygamy, men and women eating separately, strict kapi laws, their reality was a different universe. Coco watched him closely, her eyes searching for a flicker of something he might be hiding. So, have you truly never had a spiritual experience? Nothing like being empathic? Not really, Hanalei admitted, though the weight of his own history felt heavy in the humid air. I have strange dreams sometimes, but I can't interpret them. Occasionally, I feel like my grandfather is guiding me, but it's rare. And maybe Kevin too. What about your parents? They died in a car accident 10 years ago. The air between them grew thick, saturated with a grief that needed no words. Coco offered her condolences, her empathic nature likely catching the dull, jagged edges of the ache Hanalei usually kept tucked away behind his professional veneer. That's life, I guess, he said faintly, looking out toward the horizon where the bright blue of the sky bled into the deep navy of the Pacific. Indeed, Coco murmured. There are many things in life beyond our control. We are like those fish in the scoop basket. Sometimes the currents just carry us where they will, and there is no preventing it. These events come like sudden earthquakes, sweeping away the landscape of a life and leaving those behind in a haze of confusion and sorrow. I believe everything happens for a reason, she said. Hanalei wondered if that was true, or if the human brain simply tries to manufacture meaning to survive the chaos, spinning a narrative of hidden intent just to keep the heart from breaking. In our lives, things either have a reason, or we must find something to learn from them. He laughed softly and sipped his Pepsi. So, do you learn lessons from your life? I think so. I've learned a lot from my transition, especially about myself. About yourself? he asked, surprised by her vulnerability. Yes. I still struggle with my transition. She was quiet for a moment, the silence filled by the distant chirping of birds in the garden. She knew that her current female appearance, as polished as it was, didn't always sit in perfect alignment with the shifting tides of her inner self. The reflection in the mirror was a triumph, but the soul was a more complicated architecture. You don't look that way, Hanalei said firmly, breaking her reverie. To me, you look completely like a woman. Thank you. She laughed, the tension finally breaking as she playfully kicked his foot under the table. To be continued. Swim and listen to the historical gay drama in the center of the Pacific. We are releasing a brand new episodes every Sunday midnight until the epic conclusion of the story. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 15 to 45-minute hit of cinematic historical drama set in the tropical islands of Hawaii, the perfect daily plunge into the shattered world a millennium after 9/11. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full novel now. Bookmark Blue Dolphins playlist, A Great RG Saga, Alexine, Volume 1. Talesius playlist, Volume 2, Sacred Band playlist, and Divine Oracle. Unwritten words behind my novel playlist. Subscribe to follow the waves and currents of Forbidden Paradise love tales. Comment below.